We're back in the fantasy bar talking week 2. 6 of my favorite plays for you this week on FanDuel and DraftKings. We're going to highlight one game I'm really looking to get a ton of exposure to, give you a couple of my favorite value plays under 5K on DraftKings, couple workhorse running backs I love the spots for this weekend. And of course, my favorite play on the entire slate. Who we talking about? Only one way to find out. It's time to belly up to the fantasy bar. Welcome in, guys. Week 2 edition Beers Daily Fantasy Six-Pack back again, covering the main slate on FanDuel and DraftKings with 6 of my favorite plays for you. Thank you, as always, for stopping by the Fantasy Bar and checking out today's video. Before we get to those plays for Week 2, do me a favor, hit that tip jar. What is that? That is the thumbs up button. Free video here. That's all we're asking in return. You hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the content. All right, before we get into Week 2, Week 1, definitely rough, finding our way here. Week 2 looking to turn things around. I'm as upset about it as you are. All guys I had in my lineups as well, but new week, let's turn the page. First play, we're going to start at the quarterback position with Trevor Lawrence of Jacksonville. Oh, no, Lawrence, not a play for everybody. A lot of people have written him off. Week 1, kind of ho-hum, but this team didn't really have to do a whole lot and really leaned on their running game in that one against Carolina. Now, different story here against Cincinnati. Very high total in this game. They are underdogs, so probably have to throw a little bit more in this game. Now, they certainly could go the same strategy and be successful against Cincinnati, but again, 48.5. I think we get a shootout here in this game, and Cincinnati had major struggles with the quarterback position in 2024, gave up the 4th most touchdown passes, 2nd most rushing yards, which we know Lawrence has in his bag as well, and the 6th most fantasy points per game to this position. So again, not a play for everybody. I think we see a big game here out of Trevor Lawrence against this awful Cincinnati defense. All right, let's stay right there and pair him up with his tight end with some value in Brenton Strange. Now, Strange, certainly one of my favorite breakout candidates heading into this season. Had a good start to the season. We'll get to that here in a minute. And David Njoku certainly let us down last week, but we were on point with this matchup as the Cleveland tight ends between Harold Fannin and David Njoku. 15 targets in that game, 10 receptions, and 100 receiving yards. So this remains a fantastic matchup for tight ends. As far as Strange goes, stepping into this full-time tight end role, 79% of the snaps in Week 1, 4th among all tight ends last week in yards per route run. And we spoke how they didn't really have to throw a whole lot. He got off to a hell of a start, and then they just kind of cruised. So I think bigger games are coming here for Brenton Strange. Now, Cincinnati, 4th most DraftKings points allowed in Week 1 of this position, allowed the most receptions to tight ends last season, also the most fantasy points per game here. So Strange going to gobble up a ton of usage here for these Jacksonville tight ends, and about the best matchup we could ask for against the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, let's get you some correlation on the other side of the game at running back with Chase Brown. So I think we're going to see a lot of Cincinnati stacks this week. Burrow and his pass catchers, no issues with that. But let's not forget about Chase Brown here, a workhorse running back that really feels underpriced. I know you're saying, Beer, 6,800, 7,500. Back in the day, as I'll say as the old guy, we were paying $8,000, $8,500 for these running backs. So I think they're just a little bit too cheap right now on both sides. 23 touches in Week 1. Gets an easier matchup here. And I say easier because we're basing a lot of this on last season. But Cleveland last season, 6th fewest running back fantasy points allowed. So tough sledding for Chase Brown in Week 1. It's a matchup Cincinnati has traditionally struggled with. And in this matchup with Jacksonville, should see much easier sledding here. Jacksonville, even in an easy win, gave up almost 22 DraftKings points to the running back position. We go back to last season, we're talking bottom 10 for the Jags in rushing yards allowed, rushing touchdowns allowed, receiving yards allowed to the running back position, and the 2nd most fantasy points allowed in all of football. This workload's going to continue in a much better matchup here. Chase Brown, simply too cheap on both sides. All right, we're not done with that game. We want to go back to the Jacksonville side and add one more pass catcher with wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. So this is clearly my favorite game on the slate. This game will get a lot of attention, no doubt. There's ways to get different, but Brian Thomas, a guy I certainly want to go back to. As we talked about with Trevor Lawrence, didn't have to do a whole lot in that game, but I think they're going to go to the air here early and often against Cincinnati. 7 targets for him in Week 1. Production was not great. 84 unrealized air yards, so a lot of upside for more. And I know that can be a nick on Trevor Lawrence as well. I get it. But Thomas has shown an immense, massive ceiling here. Cincinnati, I don't see a ton of changes on this defense that are going to make them any better than they were last season. 7th most points per game allowed last season at over 25 per game. I think we get a high-scoring game here. I think Brian Thomas Jr. puts a big number on the board here in this matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, let's stay at wide receiver with some value in Cedric Tillman of Cleveland. So not a team, not a passing game we're going to target a lot this season, but I was very encouraged from his week 1 performance. We can go back to his 5 games last season, and this guy has been productive when he's on the field here. Now, you talk about a game script. Cleveland certainly has a shot to compete in this game, but as 11.5-point underdogs, the likely story here is Baltimore dominating this game and Joe Flacco and company having to throw a ton here. And I think Tillman going to be very involved. As I mentioned, 2024 showed a lot of upside in those games. One of those games against this Baltimore Ravens team, 7 catches, 99 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Does that mean he'll do that again? Obviously not, but shows that he can succeed in this matchup here. And Baltimore has struggled with wide receivers, bottom 5 in receptions allowed, receiving yards allowed, fantasy points per game allowed. And we saw that week 1 game against Buffalo gave up the 2nd most DraftKings points to this position of every team in week 1. Add it all up, Cedric Tillman very cheap in a perfect game script and a good matchup for him to succeed here. Good value here on Cedric Tillman. All right, it's time. Take a look at my favorite play for week 2. Before we do that, let's run it back on our Beast of the Week contest. Very easy to play. All you got to do, it's free to play. Just click that thumbs up button, help us out on that tip jar. Head to the comment section here on YouTube and guess DraftKings points for my Beast of the Week. If your guess is the closest, simple as that, you are walking away with a free week of a RotoGrinders Premium just for hanging out with me today in the fantasy bar. All right, let's wrap things up with my favorite play for week 2. You know, Matt's Beast of the Week. All right, peace time. I owe you one more running back here, and we are rolling with running back Christian McCaffrey of the Niners, this week's Beast of the Week. So I know there's concerns here for the San Francisco team. George Kittle placed on IR. News of Brock Purdy going to miss multiple weeks here. Could also be without Juwan Jennings. I expect the Niners to lean even more on CMC. And you say, how is that even possible? 31 touches for him in week 1. Mac Jones has been known as a checkdown artist. Started to get a little bit more aggressive with Jacksonville last season, but 20.5% target share to running backs over his career. So we know McCaffrey going to be involved both on the ground and through the air here. I don't think Mac Jones is as bad as a lot of people are going to claim he is. Very cheap this week on DraftKings as well, just 4K. And a good matchup here with the Saints. 2024, 7th most DraftKings points allowed overall to the running back position, 6th most rushing yards, and the most rushing touchdowns at 18 on the season here. I think McCaffrey in line for another huge dose of touches here and a good matchup with New Orleans, especially in the passing game department where he's going to be needed even more. Christian McCaffrey, way too cheap right now. Take advantage easily. My favorite play for week 2 in this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that'll do it for our week 2 picks. As always, any comments, questions, feedback, whatever you guys want to talk about, hit me up in that comment section right below the video, or you can reach out on Twitter at Beermakersfan. Get your guess in. Christian McCaffrey's DraftKings points for a shot to win a free week of RotoGrinders Premium. Don't forget my Pints and Picks will be out as well with 2 prop bets I absolutely love for this week. Clean sweep for us last week. Make sure you're checking that out. Quick 1-minute video each and every week. For RotoGrinders.com, I am Beer saying salut, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck on this week 2 slate, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for checking out our videos. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more DraftKings, FanDuel, and other DFS content. And you can check out our daily live show schedule on RotoGrinders.com/videos.